Alright, here's a fun one. What if everything around you isn't real? What if your thoughts, your memories, even this video, are all just part of an insanely advanced computer simulation? Sounds ridiculous, right? But here's the twist. Some people think the simulation hypothesis is more scientifically sound than believing in God. Others think it actually proves God exists. So today, we're diving into this wild theory, breaking down the arguments for and against it, and most importantly, asking, is this just another God of the gaps? And hey, if you're a theist who laughs at the idea of a simulated universe, but believes in an invisible deity creating everything, you might want to stick around. What is the simulation hypothesis? The simulation hypothesis suggests that our reality isn't the base reality. It's actually a hyper-advanced simulation created by a more intelligent civilization. It's like the Matrix, but instead of being trapped in a machine dystopia, we're just characters in some alien teenager's cosmic science project. Billionaire Elon Musk famously said that the odds of us living in base reality are 1 in billions, because if civilizations keep advancing, they'll eventually create simulations indistinguishable from reality. And if they do, how do we know we're not inside one right now? Some theists have actually latched on to this idea, saying, if we're in a simulation, then there must be a simulator, and that simulator is God, which sounds deep until you realize they just renamed the programmer. Arguments for the simulation hypothesis and how they compare it to God belief. So why do some people take this idea seriously? And how does it stack up against religious belief? We're already creating our own simulations. Let's be real. 40 years ago, video games were just pixelated blobs. Now, we have AI-generated humans, virtual reality, and entire digital worlds. If humanity keeps advancing, it's only a matter of time before we create simulations so realistic that the people inside wouldn't even know they're in a simulation. Now, compare that to religion's argument for God, that the universe must have a designer because it's too complex to exist on its own. But here's the difference. We know advanced civilizations can create simulations because we're doing it. We don't know if gods can create universes because there's no evidence. So if you're going to default to a creator, the simulation hypothesis is actually the more logical choice. The universe behaves like a simulation. Quantum mechanics is weird, really weird. Scientists have found that tiny particles change their behavior when observed, almost like reality is rendering itself in real time to save processing power. Some argue that this is exactly how a simulation would work. In a video game, your computer doesn't render the whole world at once, only the parts you're looking at. Now, religious folks like to say, look how weird the universe is. That proves God did it. But again, if we're just going off weirdness alone, the simulation hypothesis fits just as well, if not better, because at least it aligns with how humans design simulations. The Fermi paradox. Where are the aliens? The universe is massive. There should be life everywhere. But nothing. One possible explanation: the simulation just doesn't include aliens. Or they exist, but the program is set to single-player mode until we figure out how to level up. Now, contrast this with the religious argument for human exceptionalism. The idea that humans are special because God created us in His image. So which makes more sense? A simulation theory that removes unnecessary code aliens, or a religious belief that just assumes we're the center of everything? Because reasons. Arguments against the simulation hypothesis and why they also debunk God. Now, let's talk about why the simulation hypothesis is probably nonsense. Ironically, for the same reasons God is nonsense. 1. The universe is too complex to simulate. If this is a simulation, whoever programmed it went way overboard. They didn't just create Earth. They coded an entire universe with billions of galaxies, black holes, and quantum physics. At that point, wouldn't it be easier to just make a real universe instead of running an unnecessarily detailed simulation? Now, compare that to theism. Theists claim that God is an all-powerful being who created an entire, infinitely detailed universe just to test us. In both cases, it feels like an overcomplicated explanation for something that might just exist on its own. The ethics of simulated people, if we are in a simulation, that means whoever created it is letting us suffer. War, disease, existential crises, stubbed toes, all of it. And that raises an ethical question. Why? What kind of messed up programmer would code in so much pain? Theists run into the same problem with God. Why would an all-loving deity allow suffering? Why design a world where bad things happen to good people? At least with a simulation. You could argue that the programmers are just indifferent nerds who forgot to patch out human misery. But if God is running the show, then he's doing it on purpose. Final thoughts. A fun thought experiment or just another God? So, are we living in a simulation? Probably not. But here's what's funny. The arguments for simulation theory are actually stronger than the arguments for God. It's based on observable technological trends. It doesn't require magic or infinite power. And it actually has a testable framework, even if we haven't found evidence yet. But in the end, both ideas suffer from the same problem. There's no actual proof. If you think simulation theory is ridiculous, but still believe in God, maybe it's time to ask why one sounds like nonsense to you, but the other doesn't. Now, it's your turn. What do you think? Is this all just a high-tech illusion, or are we overthinking things again? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown of wild ideas, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you start seeing glitches in reality, don't look too closely.